What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So, since we're about 4 days away from the first presidential debate, I'm going to be talking politics a little bit more on this channel, but don't worry, you'll still get your NBA fix or entertainment fix or whatever. But I want to talk a little bit more about what the mainstream media isn't, what they aren't focusing on. Now, I did see a recent poll that showed Joe Biden with a national 50-48 lead over Donald Trump. But I also saw a Rasmussen poll. Now, Rasmussen does lean Republican, so that could be a little skewed too. But that showed a lot of undecideds, and it showed Trump with a 46-36 national lead, which means that no candidate in that poll was over 50%. But for Joe Biden to only be polling 36% among likely voters is telling. But this is why these numbers should bother, that they should worry Democrats. Remember, a Republican candidate has not won the popular vote in the presidential election since George W. Bush in 2004, when he beat John Kerry. I think it was 50.6% to 48.3%, right? Won by 3 million votes. Since then, Republicans, because of certain national trends, are at a disadvantage when it comes to the popular vote, because increasingly large urban Democratic centers have become even more overwhelmingly Democratic. Cities like Chicago, the cities of Chicago, Cook County, New York City, Philly, Los Angeles, basically, if you look at the top 100 cities as far as population, almost all of them probably lean Democratic. Baltimore. So, while if you look at a map and you see like all the areas that Trump won, and it's like most of the country, like, well, man, that should be a landslide. Well, the thing is, all that space, and not a lot of people live there, but those small little areas house millions of people. And that's why in the rural areas, Trump can get 70% of the vote. And you'll think, man, he should be winning by a landslide. But then to offset, Biden will get 60% of the urban vote, but the urban vote is like twice as big, if not 3 times as big. So then there you go. So look, remember, in 2020, Joe Biden won the popular vote 51% to 47%. So when you look at it, the 50-48 margin actually favors Trump, because Trump only lost, even though he lost by 7 million popular votes, it's the Electoral College that elects the president. And we look at Electoral College. A switch of something around, I think 50-something thousand votes in Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and I think Michigan would have flipped the election to Trump, even if he had lost by almost 7 million votes. So it's not the popular vote, it's the state-by-state election that elects presidents. And if you look at the state-by-state polling, not the national polling, because that's just going to generally favor Joe Biden. And if Biden is down in a national poll, then that really means he's in trouble. It's the state-by-state polling. The fact that, for instance, Trump is leading in Nevada, a state that hasn't voted Republican since Bush in 2004. He's competitive in Virginia, a state that once again hasn't voted for Republicans since Bush in 2004. He's, I believe, leading in Michigan, a state that he carried back in 2016. He's competitive in Philadelphia, a state that he narrowly lost in 2020 and carried in 2016. Georgia, I think he's leading again, a state that Biden carried by the narrowest of margins. Arizona, I think he's leading there, a state that Biden carried by the narrowest of margins. You flip all those states to Trump, he wins. So this is why it's more important to look at the state-by-state polling. Also give you an indication of how much in trouble Joe Biden is and how unenthusiastic his supporters are. A latest Siena College poll in New York State, has Joe Biden up by only 8 points. In New York State. Let me put this in perspective to you. A Republican hasn't carried New York State in a presidential election since the hell with George W. Bush, since George H.W. Bush ran in 1988, when he beat Mike Dukakis by a 4-point margin in New York. Even then, his margin in New York was under his margin nationally, which was 7 points. Meaning that the state was already trending blue then. Even in Reagan's 49 state landslide in 1984, Reagan only won New York State by 8 points, 54-46. He won the national election by 18 points. New York used to be a swing state that leaned Democratic. Starting in the 80s, it started becoming progressively more and more Democratic. Matter of fact, George H.W. Bush is the last winning candidate to win New York by single digits. So that, Biden, the fact that now it's just a poll, and I don't think it's going to stay that way. I think eventually as the election comes closer, more of the traditional voters are going to back Biden. I think that lead will expand. But New York is a state that normally goes Democratic. Man, it's a state that they call when the polls close. They don't have to count votes. They can use exit polling. They use the science of exit polling. They can call the state after it closes. The polls close because it's a state that goes Democratic usually by 25 points or more. So for Biden to be only up 8 points, dude is in trouble. He's in serious trouble. And the reason why I say he's in serious trouble is because this is something that has persisted. This issue with his support. It's not really getting much better. We already know that he, according to polling, has lost some support from black voters. He's lost a lot of support from Latino voters. Young people who have been a staple of the Democratic Party, as far as support. They're not enthusiastic about Biden. They're not, as far as the numbers and percentage, they're not really enthusiastic about an 81-year-old candidate. Now, to be fair, Donald Trump is not much younger at 78. Women voters who have been since at least the Clinton years, solid supporters of the Democratic Party. Well, Trump has made inroads with women. So, this election is far from over. But, if I had to wager right now, I would say I think Trump is in a good position to become the second president after Grover Cleveland to win a presidential term after losing an election. After being an incumbent president. I think he's on that way. It's right now the referendum is on Biden and a lot of people are not happy right now. They're not happy, man. Wages are down. Rent is up. Taxes are up. Mortgages. Gas prices are up. All of the good, people like this, all the good shit is down. All the bad stuff is up. At least that's the perspective that people have. The perception that people have. Some of it's true. And unless Biden can convince voters otherwise, then he's going to be out of a job in January. And I guess sent to the retirement home.